This is the third time in under a year that I have changed my business model. Not because the last one failed, it was working. I've changed it this time because I finally saw the ceiling in terms of where it leads. And I realized I don't want that life. If you've been following along for a while now, you've probably already seen this once before. I started out doing time for money consulting, and I tore that down pretty quickly. Then I rebuilt the model around productized retainers priced between $1,500 and $2,500 per month. And now, only months later, I am tearing that down too and building again from scratch. And you're probably wondering, why? What triggered this? And why if it's working? Over Christmas and New Year's, I traveled back to New Zealand. And it was the first time in a long time that I stepped away from my work properly for a bit. Not just from recording these YouTube videos, but from the constant grind of tweaking and optimizing and just always being switched on and focusing on whatever my most pressing priorities were. When you have a longer period of time off like that, you stop thinking in terms of the next immediate priority and what you're doing for the week, and you start to zoom out and think about the bigger picture in terms of where you're headed in the next few months or the next few years and what that means. I ultimately had a lot of time to look at what I've built so far, what I'm currently aiming at, and where that path actually leads. That's where the discomfort started to kick in. Now, if we go back to when I moved out of the selling my time for money business model, that was quite an obvious decision. I'd hit almost $30,000 per month selling my time directly for money. But the problem with that business model was obvious and it was brutal. The moment that you stop pushing, you go straight back to zero. In other words, you can literally be making $20,000 or $30,000 one month, and the next month, if you take a holiday or get sick, zero, nothing. It all just goes. And so coming from that business model, retainers were the natural next step. They were the obvious evolution. Selling something that had predictable revenue, more leverage that could be delegated to a team. But at that point, something that you've got to understand is I could not conceive of selling high ticket retainers. And when I mean high ticket in this context, I'm talking about above $5,000 per client per month. I was still thinking about the value that I provided in terms of the individual services. What's this spreadsheet worth? What's this financial model worth? Totally the wrong frame to be thinking about providing value. And so ultimately I built what I could imagine selling at the time. Having been selling my time for an hourly rate of $100 to $250 an hour, I was comfortable with the idea that a service I would provide might be worth $1,500 per month or $2,500 per month, but not $5,000 or $7,000. That just seemed unattainable and ridiculous. And on the surface, this low-ticket retainer was fine. It was designed for me when I was a different person and when I was solving different problems. Back then, I had the goal of getting it to $30,000 a month, but of consistent, boring, repetitive revenue. And that model would be able to get there. But when I was in New Zealand, I ran the end state. What does this actually look like? And I've got some experience already operating this model. And the reality is, it looks like 10 to 15 clients, constant context switching, endless petty shit, and ultimately a situation where I'm never present because I'm always spread too thin across too many things at once. You don't build leverage in this model, you build a high-paying job out of multiple clients. It would be chaotic in practice, and that really is the ceiling. And when you think about if you want to take it beyond 30,000, if you want to get it to 50,000 or 80,000 and get to a seven-figure run rate, that is total chaos. And then I started to think about how I could achieve the same revenue under a different or better model. Theoretically, it's possible to get to $30,000 a month with only 4 or 5 clients. Now that's the same revenue, but it's a completely different business. Less admin, you've got less noise, you've got more depth, and you've got cleaner delivery. And perhaps the most critical, that model actually scales. And so once I saw those two futures side by side, I couldn't really unsee it. I was unsettled with the current model, and I knew it was taking me somewhere that I ultimately wouldn't be happy with the end state outcome. And I think that this is the part that really matters if you're watching this. Most people don't set stupid goals, but they set goals that make sense for where they're at right now. They solve for whatever their pain is today, whatever they want today, and whatever they can imagine as realistic for them as the person they are today. And that's fine. It might be get out of this shitty job, feel stable, stop stressing stress. And that's totally fine at the start. But if you never revisit the goal as your thinking expands, then you end up building something which serves you in the short term, but can also quietly screw you later on. Careers will do this, businesses will definitely do this, financial plans will do this. These things all work until they don't. And in my personal context, I'm 29, I'm turning 30 this year. Right now, $20,000 to $30,000 a month for me is perfect. It's plenty for me as an individual. And this is key. And that's what I was thinking about when I set the original target. But one of the things that happened when I was in New Zealand and I zoomed out is I was like, holy shit, I'm looking at my 30s now. My 20s are over. And what's my life likely to look like this decade in, say, 5 years' time? And while $20,000 to $30,000 a month might be perfect for me as an individual, that's not where this story ends. I've got aging parents. I'll probably have a family of my own. And realistically, if I ever decide in the future that I want to return to a tier 1 city in the West and buy a house, well then, it's not about ambition. This shit is just getting insanely expensive. And so when you factor all of that in, building a business that can truly get to a 7-figure run rate, which is roughly $84,000 per month, it doesn't actually sound ambitious to me in the context of how much everything costs these days and how much more responsibilities I am likely to have as these years progress. So here's the line that I drew in the sand. I am not selling any more of these lower ticket retainers. I'm done. I'm not stacking client volume, and I'm not selling any gimmicky spreadsheets or individual services. The new price floor that I'm selling this year is $5,000 per new client per month. And the way that you clear that type of price is not by bundling widgets together. It's by taking ownership of a function. It's by reducing risk for the buyer. And so this year for me, if it all goes to plan, is going to look like fewer clients, but bigger responsibilities and cleaner outcomes. And if I can't clear that bar, honestly, I want to know now, not after I've built myself into a corner. And that brings me back to this YouTube channel and why I started recording these videos. I didn't start this channel off a perfect plan, and anyone who's watched the earlier videos will be able to see that clearly. I deliberately started to roll the camera early before I had everything figured out, and to document these real decisions and trade-offs and challenges as they're happening. And so this year, my priority is very simple. I'm going to try and clear this new price point at all costs as soon as possible. If I succeed, I will lock in this model, this higher ticket model, and scale it properly and aggressively. And if I fail, I'll probably tear it down again and rebuild something different. But we will do a full post-mortem on this channel as to why and how I problem solve my way to the next thing. Either way, I'm not going to bullshit you. So yeah, this is pretty much where I'm at as we start 2026. One clear priority to kick the year off. Not really a reset as such, just me refusing to build something that I've ultimately realized I know I will regret later, and it's easier to change now before I go any further down the wrong path. That's the line I won't cross this year.